In this video, I'm going to go over how to play soulful R&B chords in different combinations. Even if you are a complete beginner, this video will be for you. And if you watch until the end, I will have a special surprise that will help you continue with your piano learning journey. So if you are a complete beginner, there are a few things that you need to know before we begin. First thing is, in piano, fingers have numbers. So thumb is number 1, and it goes 2, 3, 4, 5. Same with the left hand. The thumb is number 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. The second thing you need to know is that the piano, or the names of the white keys, are by letters. So C is the white key that is to the left of the 2 black keys. So these 2 black keys here, this is C, and then it goes D, E, F, G, and then A, and then B, and then C. And then after that is just the same sequence. So the piano is just the same 7 white keys that repeat themselves over. So again, that's just a real quick review. The third thing that you need to know is what are chords, because that is what makes most songs, right? Is that they have chords in them. So a chord is going to be either 3 or more notes that are played at the same time, right? And there are different types of chords. You have major chords, which sound happy, right? You have minor chords that sound sad. And you have other types of chords. And you can also have 4-note chords, right? Which we'll be working with today, which are called 7th chords. And the reason why it's called a 7th chord, because you're probably wondering, how is it called a 7th chord if there are only 4 notes? The 7th is referring to the distance between the bottom and the top key. Because in music, we deal with what are called intervals, which is the distance between the keys. So from C to B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys. So that is why it's called the 7th chord, because it's referring to the distance between the bottom and the top note of the chord being 7 keys. Right? So 7th chords are what are used in R&B chords or R&B music, right? And there are different types of 7th chords. So let's say we have a C major 7th chord. There are technical reasons why it's called a C major 7th chord, but the reason why it's called major is because it sounds happy, right? So there are 3 chords that we are going to be using in this example today. We're going to be dealing with the D minor 7th chord, which has D, F, A, and C. And we'll also be dealing with the G dominant 7th chord. And there's a reason why it's called dominant. I will cover that in another video. We have G, B, D, and F. And then we have the C major 7th chord, where we have C, E, G, and B. Those will be the 3 chords that we will be talking about in today's video. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to move this over. So a few things you need to know. In a 7th chord, you have what is called a root, which is the name of the chord. So if I say C major 7th chord, C is going to be the root of the chord, or the main note of the chord, right? And then from there you have the root, the 3rd, because it's 3 keys above the root, 1, 2, 3. You have the 5th, which is 5 keys above the root, and then you have the 7th, which is, as we explained, 7 keys above the root, right? So let's take what we call voicings, or inverting, to be able to create different sounds with the same exact chord. And there are a few reasons why we do this, because it allows us to play going from one chord to another a lot easier, and it allows us to be able to create a sound that we like, right? So let's take one chord, for example, C, E, G, and B. I don't necessarily have to play the chord exactly this way, with this exact order, right? But what I do have to do is I have to use C, E, G, and B in whatever arrangement that I use. So I could take this chord, right, and play a different way, and it'll still be a C major 7th chord because it consists of these specific 4 notes. So I could take C, for example, and I could bring it an octave up, and I still have C, E, G, and B. They're just played in a different arrangement. It's still a C major 7th chord, and C is still the root, right? Another thing that I could do, C, E, G, and B, let's go back to the beginning, right, is I could add a left hand. And so what I could do is I could, instead of having my right hand play all 4 notes of the C major 7th chord, which is C, E, G, and B, I could have the left hand play the root, which is C, which means I can take out the C from the right hand, and I would be left with just E, G, and B with the right hand, while C is being played on the left hand. So you see how it's the same chord because it's the same C, E, G, and B that builds the chord, but I'm playing the notes a little bit differently. This is where we get into voicings, right? And there's so many different ways we can do this, right? So I could do it this way. I could also take the 3 notes that I'm playing with the right hand so I can keep C where it is. But I could also change the order in which I'm playing E, G, and B. One of the ways that I could do this is I could take B and bring it down an octave. So I could play B down here, E here, and G at the top. C is still the root, and we still have a C major 7th chord because we still have C, E, G, and B. We're just playing them in a different order. So you see how I can play different combinations of the same chord and get a slightly different sound each time, right? And again, there's endless possibilities here. So I wanted to give you an idea of how voicing and inverting works, but we're going to go through an actual chord progression with the actual R&B chords, and we'll do some voicings as an exercise. Before I get into that, I do want to bring to your attention that I do have a free piano in 3 steps video where I go over how to play piano from the very beginning, from naming the chords to being able to play both hands together. So if you're a complete beginner, want to get your foot in the door, that video is accessible for free. There's a link in the description box to sign up. Make sure you sign up for that video before you leave this tutorial. So now let's get into the 3 chords I've talked about. So we'll deal with the D minor 7th chord, which has D, F, A, and C. And I will walk you through this very slowly. And we will add a left hand to it. And then we'll go to the G dominant 7th chord, G, B, D, and F, right? And then we will go back to the C, E, G, and B chord. What we're going to do is we're going to rearrange these chords where we're not jumping all over the place. We're not doing all this, right? So that's another reason why voicing is important, because we can invert or we can rearrange the chords to where they're easier to play. So let's go with one example. And one way that I could do this is if I know that the chord, the first chord that I'm dealing with is a D minor 7th chord, I know that D, the D minor 7th chord has D, F, A, and C, right? So one way that I could approach this is I can have the left hand play whatever the root is. So the root in this case is D, so I can just play D down here, which only leaves my right hand to only have to focus on the remaining 3 notes, which are F, A, and C. So I could do it this way, right? Or I could do it a little bit differently, where I could take the C and bring it down an octave, and now I have C, F, and A, I still have a D minor 7th chord because it still has D, F, A, and C in it, but I'm just playing them in a different arrangement. Right? So this is where improvisation kind of comes in, where you can kind of just create your own arrangements of these 7th chords. So now let's go to our G chord, right? Remember, the G dominant 7th chord has G, B, D, and F in it, right? I'm already playing my F right here. So how can I arrange that chord where I can stay within vicinity? I don't have to do a whole bunch of jumping around. There are a few things I could do. I could do something like, let's say, I could have the left hand play G at the bottom, which means I only have to think about B, D, and F on the right hand. So I could go from here, and then I could go this way where I could play G here and B, D, and F right here. Right? And if I wanted to go to that C chord, the C, E, G, B chord, or the C major 7th chord, we already know that the notes are C, E, G, and B. So I could take the left hand to play the root. My thumb is already playing B, so the only other 2 notes that are missing are E and G. So I could just take my 3rd finger to play E, which is right near it, and I can allow my pinky to play G, and now I have a G major 7th chord. So I could do my voicings this way. So that's pretty much how you can create soulful sounds using different 4-note chords and all of that. So I did say I was going to give you a surprise. I do have another video where I teach you an actual very common R&B chord progression. I will provide that link in the top right corner of this tutorial. And if this was helpful, please not only subscribe, but also turn on the notification bell, because sometimes even if you subscribe, you will not get notified that I am releasing a new video every single week unless you turn on that bell. So whenever a new video comes out, that if you turn on the notification bell, you will get a ping in your phone saying, hey, so-and-so or Ayana just released another video. And if you do like the video, please hit the like button. It helps my video get more views. And obviously you can share with others. And if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments section and I will be more than happy to answer. So thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next lecture. Take care.